I also want to talk today about Sinbad because it's Wellness Wednesday, and I want to talk to us about stress in our community. Um, so you know what? Sinbad had a stroke. You know that, right?
I did not
Yeah.
know that.
Okay. All right.
Oh,
64 years old. He suffered a stroke. I think it was early last week. I didn't talk about it. I wanted to wait until Wellness Wednesday because as I was reading the story, I'm now, and I'm glad I waited because, he had a high tax bill, $10 million tax bill.
wow.
Uh, and not working. So you think about Sinbad, a different world. He had his own television show. He's one of the best comedians. I think he is in the top 10 all time. Like he's a great comedian who can do his craft without cursing,
Yeah.
without being vile and vulgar, which I think is work in this time that we're in. Beautiful human being. I listened to an interview he did last year before COVID with Heather B on Sirius XM, Heather B Live at noon. And I just fell in love with him, and he was so honest and forthright and just transparent and just real. He had a stroke. And I just want to say this for people who are listening, because our lives are really dominoes laid up, decisions made, environment, of course, but it's a stacking up. You don't come into this world with hate. You don't come into this world with diabetes. You don't come into this world with clogged arteries. If you do, it's a very rare situation. If that's a birth defect. For the most part, the conditions that we suffer under are cumulative. And there's some epigenetics, especially if you are Black, melanated. There's some you're carrying ancestral baggage with you into this life, which means self-care and community, that those two things have to be at the forefront of everything that we do. We had a lady on yesterday, a brilliant lady named Tiffany Dufu, who has a business called The Crew. She has it's not even a business, it's a movement, The Crew. And as she was talking, I was thinking about everyone listening. It's just primarily for women. It is only for women, but everyone listening to my voice needs a crew, not a crew that's going to encourage you to do bad things, to cheat and to go hang out and drink and smoke and not wear a mask. You need a crew that's going to hold you to your better self. You need a crew who's going to listen to your goals and the things that you want to accomplish and check in with you every week to see if you've done that. I've actually created that with my own life personally. I check in with somebody every Monday and we pray, and then we go over all of the things that I want to accomplish this week. Now, this is something that started after my retreat because we all had accountability partners and I chose mine. Somebody that's close, but not, doesn't know me forever and can be objective enough to say, are you doing this, this, and this? Because everybody needs it, but also from a mental health and a wellness perspective, the things that you want to get done. And I look at somebody like Sinbad, who should never have been in a position to be financially insecure, should never been in a position to have that much stress and weight, about to lose his home. And I don't know, especially for Black men, who feel, and I had this conversation too. We're going to start to have more conversations about Black men and Black women. I had a conversation with an executive woman, and she said, the hardest thing for her was taking a job where she's making 10 times more than her husband. Oof. She said, because now I'm in a space where there's a lot of pressure on me because I'm in this space where, I have expectations that I'm one of the only people, Black women in these spaces answering to white men. So I got white men that I got to answer to and show up a certain way. And then I got to come home and deal with that. And I can't blame him for feeling a way about that, because that's how the system is. Like the welfare system. Can't have a daddy in the home or you won't get the biggest benefit. And in the workplace, we're going to give the money to the Black woman because we know. And I don't know if it's conscious, but it feels like it is, right? It feels like it is. Oh, Black women are the most agree, because it's an undermining of our union. Now, how we deal with it once we know the facts is everything.
Exactly.
But we need to have that conversation, because as a man of a certain age who has carried the burden of his family, of being the breadwinner, because that's what we've been conditioned. If you're a man, you got to be the breadwinner. So what happens if your wife is a breadwinner? Does that mean you're not a man? Does that mean you're less than a man? And then how do you show your manhood? Well, I'm going to dominate in another kind of way. I'm going to show her that I'm, because I feel less than here. So I have to make up for it there. And so it causes, and she's probably going to, let you do that because she wants to keep the peace. It's crazy, the insanity that we have and the stress. So I'm saying all of this to say that we got a lot to talk about. And we need to continue to have these conversations. And I feel like, I'm tippy-toeing in this forum because it's not, protected. But that said, as I looked at Sinbad's stroke, I saw not the diet, lack of exercise. I didn't look at that. I looked at the stress of having to carry the burden of everything.
Yeah.
And then it falls and you don't have a way to pick it back up. So we're going to talk about that. As a matter of fact, let me play a couple of clips because I need context on this. Let's play clip 3 first, Smiz, and I want to set up the other clip.
You know what the hardest part for me, Lou, was when I went to a Black award show, because they asked me to come. I stayed out of everybody's way. I didn't want anybody to have to feel like, oh, Sinbad's trying to be. I didn't, that's not what I do. I came because one of the people asked me to come, and I'm trying to find my seat. So I just asked them, hey man, they asked me to come, where should I sit? And I heard somebody say, look at Sinbad trying to be relevant. Why is he here?
Oh.
And I said, this ain't me. So I said, hey, I'll be right back and go to the bathroom. I went to the parking lot. I got in the car. I said, they'll never see me again. Not even like, ooh, when I make my comeback, I'm back. I said, no, they'll never see me again.
That hurt my heart, because that's community, right? How dare you? How dare you utter that? So we got to stop acting like the oppressor and the colonizer with one another. We gotta learn how to, when you see somebody who you haven't seen in a while, they didn't stop being talented. Right. You got to understand, and it's weird. And I've been contemplating this, Lurie, because, I sit here having done a lot in my short period of time on this earth. And there are people who've never heard of me before, and that's fine. I don't do this for fame, but don't get it twisted. Like, I've been talented. Yeah. I've been this same person. Anybody who knows me, 20 years, I've been doing this. If you listen to my radio show 20 years ago, same message. Nothing's changed except you now are catching up. But what's interesting is it tells you that, I've been on MSNBC, CNN was doing a pilot. I did a pilot for them to have my own TV show. People pick and choose who they want to be successful in a white-facing world.
Yeah.
What you're listening to on Urban View is not that. This is a creation of our own making, which is why every day I thank this family, because we are only here because you've decided that this is something that you appreciate and that you want to listen to. And you have made this channel one of the most successful channels that SiriusXM has ever had in this space for sure. But it is not white facing, and it's not at their behest in terms of picking and choosing who's successful. Because if it were up to them, this channel would look a whole lot different than it looks right now.
Right.
And I say all of that to say that there are people who decide who your music stars are going to be, who your television stars are going to be, who your media stars are going to be. They handpick them. They put them on the front page of magazines and television shows. Stacey Abrams, and then there are forces of nature, like Stacey Abrams, somebody that they're not checking for, but and they'll jump on a bandwagon quick. Trust and believe. Bandwagons are heavy.
Yeah.
Once it's too late to stop the juggernaut or the bullet train. There's some bullet trains. I like to think I'm a bullet train. I'm never stopping, whether they jump on the bandwagon or not. But I look at this and I said, Sinbad, for somebody in his culture, in his community, to say, look at him, what's he doing sitting up? Like, he doesn't deserve a seat at that table as one of the, I think, the top 10 comedians that we have in our community of all time. You can put him in the top 15, but he's in the top. So I wanted to play that because part of the stress that we bear is one another. It's what we put on each other.
Yeah.
How we treat one another. And we got to really, really stop. So I want to say
that. You just triggered so many thoughts for me. And the reason I'm looking down is because I'm writing out notes about points. I feel like back when we were in the studio when I had just that list of notes of things to say.
Giant notebook.
Right. Here it is. It's huge. So this triggers a lot for me because the idea, first, we just need to to recognize that the quote I mentioned earlier, if you don't understand white supremacy, everything you think you understand will always confuse you, that also includes our interpersonal relationships with each other. And so prior to the introduction of white supremacist thought and ideology through the grievances of slavery and colonization, elders are always relevant. Elders are always, that you are our entire, and I'm going to make broad generalization here. So, you know, if you're a Pan-Africanist who speaks to this specificity of individual cultures, just give me a minute for a second. Throughout the entirety of time that Africans have been African people, I'm going to say, and that's a bold statement, elders are always relevant because of the wisdom that they carry. Ancestors are always relevant because of the role that they play in society. And so that a statement like that can be made within earshot of the elder, no less, really speaks to a separation from who we are. And I get back to that phrase, you know, not only who we are to who are we to other people, but who are we to each other? Like that concept that Dr. Carr has kind of talked about from his Philadelphia curriculum really rings true for me. And part of the reason that this is important is because we have to recognize that the ways we have been taught to treat each other is also through the veil of white supremacy approach to Blackness. So that says Black people, in my Black mind, are the least important people on the planet because I have been taught that Black people are not worthy. So I literally am raised to despise my reflection. Right? So that's one thing. Let's put that to the side. When it comes to the economics of Black love, and I call it that because when I was in bankruptcy practice and doing a lot of consumer debt work, my clientele was primarily high income, first generation, high income Black people who were coming into money, like the sister who's making 10 times more than her husband, for the first time in their lives, in their entire family's like life cycle in this reality, the first time they're coming into money. So not only are you the big cousin and the auntie who has all the money, but you are the one who has to solve all the problems. You have to pay for mama and daddy's care, elder care. You got to pay for grandmama. You're the one you're the one who is seen to be able to handle all of the things because white people have given you the mantle of having high access to income. And so when we're talking about the pay discrepancies between Black men and Black women, that is a highly sensitive issue. One that I experienced, you know, my husband was an educator. I came out of law school, working at a law firm, making more money than Black Jesus. It was ridiculous. Like, I didn't even understand it. Like, the first check I got, my knees got weak. And I was in my office, I had to shut the door, and I called my husband, and I looked over my shoulder, and I whispered in the phone. I was like, baby, I just got my check. We rich, bitch. Like, I literally, that was like, I could not even understand that much money. And what that does to a relationship, the fissures and the weaknesses in self-image that can expose, because we live in a society that prizes economic payment over intrinsic value. When you don't have an African-centered belief system that's going to value the elders regardless of the last time they did the show, when you no longer have cultural practices that are going to value the intrinsic value that each of us provides and carries in and breeds into the community regardless of how much we're getting paid for it, you will have people knocking on my door as first generation high income earners who are now divorcing because they were not able to reconcile what that means, right? Which is really just a 2000s or late 90s of modern era version of what we saw when Black men and Black women were separated from the welfare system because a man in the house means no food on the table. So recognizing that is a system that was intentionally created has to factor into our discussions about money. It has to factor into our discussions about love and sustainability of relationships because we live in a society that is really centered around capital and who has the greater access to it. So when we're thinking about even the politics of our lust, the politics of our love and our relationships, we have got to develop an analysis that recognizes the role of white supremacist ideology, how it teaches us to see each other, and how it teaches us to relate to each other. And that starts even on playgrounds. And we just become older adult versions of it in our interpersonal relationships. And then we wonder why brothers and sisters can't find love the higher their degrees and education levels that they have. It's a lot.
It is. And I feel like the 3 hours, we're not going to tackle it all, but I'm just scratching the surface, and we're going to keep digging because it breaks my heart that Sinbad had a stroke. I just want to send prayers and well wishes to him. And, we lost John Singleton to a stroke Then he died at age 51. Sinbad is 64. We shouldn't be dying like this. We just should not be dying like this. And I suspect we would die a lot less if we leaned into community, if we love one another voraciously, like however we show up in the world, like just instead of all of the picking that we do and all of the pressure that we just release one another. We talk about freedom. We are literally, the chains have been removed, but not really. We are keeping each other in bondage around things that really don't matter.
Yeah. And that's why rituals are so important, right? Rituals, whether they be pouring libation or having specific meeting spaces or having education institutions. Rituals are so important because rituals allow us to practice the desired outcomes, right? And so when it comes to healing from what we've been taught, we have to create rituals that are going to teach us to love each other harder than we were taught to hate each other. And that's asking a lot because right now, most of our music, for example, our cultural rituals, our cultural expressions really reinforce white supremacist relationship boundaries and parameters. And we have got to create rituals from young that are going to teach us how to love each other through our Africanity, our mind, who we truly are, and not through who we've been taught to be by being socialized in a society that says we are the bottom. And that requires intentional work.
Yep. Well, we're gonna do it here. At least it's Wellness Wednesday. I'm gonna commit. I've been committed. And every day, there's one more piece of this puzzle that's becoming very clear.